Well, as you can see, we're talking about a lot of specifics in here, and I use this term to start off every one of these videos. Homeostasis is the key. What's happening in the body? What do we change? So the pituitary, being 1 centimeter in diameter, just this really small little part on the brain, and it just is amazing, is only one gland. So let's address some of the other glands in the endocrine system, and let's talk about some of the hormones that they produce. Hormone meaning a chemical in the body that causes something to happen. Okay, so a chemical messenger that causes some. It's an activated chemical that causes some kind of effect. So the next gland we're going to talk about is the thyroid gland. Now, the thyroid is located in the neck and consists of 2 lateral lobes. As a matter of fact, right here you can actually feel, okay, you can actually feel your thyroid gland is going to be down below your either side of your throat here. It's kind of interesting. So there's a thyroid gland. It's sitting on right in the once again, it's 2 lateral lobes. It's on each side of the neck here, okay, on each side of your larynx or your voice box. Now, what does the thyroid produce? Well, the thyroid produces thyroxine, Thyroxine, and it is needed for normal growth and development. Oh, well, the thyroid gland controls your normal growth and development, controls your metabolism, controls how tall or how short you'll be, and this is kind of one of them that's always amazing too. The thyroid controls your metabolism, so you could actually be somebody that has a thyroid disorder, okay, which is the thyroid gland producing thyroxine, and you could actually have the wrong hormone producing this, and you could actually be a very large, even obese person, and it may make you crave because you have a lot of cells. I'm not saying that you wouldn't eat a lot, but you might not even really be an overeater. You may have a thyroid problem. Somebody may be really short in that the thyroxine didn't develop enough of the growth hormone to develop. You can be a giant because the thyroid produces too much thyroxine and causes your growth to go beyond what it's ordinarily supposed to be. So hormones critical to, once again, homeostasis. The thyroid produces this thyroxine, which is needed for normal growth and development. And then it also is calcitonin, calcitonin. Okay, calcitonin is another hormone produced by the thyroid, and it lowers blood calcium. So there's a hormone that adjusts the amount of calcium in our blood. We need calcium for bones. We also need a balance. We need a homeostasis of calcium. You know, some people don't have enough calcium, and so they're having to take calcium supplements. Some people have too much calcium, and they're getting kidney stones. So or gallstones or different things. So what happens is that if something's out of balance, then the thyroid's going to say, okay, I've got to secrete this hormone. I've got to secrete this hormone to get things back into balance. So one of those is calcitonin, and that controls the amount of calcium. So what if you don't have enough calcitonin in your body, and you continue to take the calcium and it doesn't break down, and your body can't use it? Once again, then that's a hormone problem. Now, I know you're probably thinking to yourself, is it possible that we could take some of these hormones and it's kind of interesting because certain hormones, okay, once again we've got the fat soluble and we've got the water soluble, but certain hormones we can actually give to you. We can actually, my mom, I remember my mom for years, for her whole life, her thyroid didn't produce enough thyroxine, so she had to take, it's a little pink pill, and maybe some of you know somebody or have had to do that, and you could actually take a certain amount of thyroid or thyroxine every day to replace what the thyroid gland would produce. So a lot of the hormones, once we know the problem, we can actually give those, but not all hormones are replaced medically. So that's the thyroid gland. Then we have the parathyroid gland, okay, Parathyroid, parathyroid. Now, this is on the surface of the thyroid. So you've got the thyroid gland located here on the side of the neck, but then on the surface of that, okay, you have the parathyroid. Now, it's kind of interesting because even though the two are similar, this one produces a whole different type of hormone. Okay, this is called PTH. It's kind of easy to remember because it's the parathyroid hormone. Now, this one is kind of interesting because what does PTH do? The parathyroid hormone, it increases blood calcium ion concentrations and decreases blood phosphate ion concentration. So what does the thyroid do? The thyroid comes in, and what do we say it does? We talked about the thyroid. It is needed for normal growth and development. It's a thyroxine, and then it also, the thyroid produces calcitonin, lowers blood calcium. So the thyroid has something that lowers the blood calcium. The parathyroid has something that raises the blood calcium, but it also controls blood phosphates. So later on we get to blood, we'll talk more about the phosphates too, but phosphate and calcium have to be in balance in the blood. Just like later on we're going to talk about sodium and potassium. So it's really easy. If the calcium or the phosphate's out of balance, then the parathyroid produces that hormone, or the thyroid produces a hormone causing more calcium and more phosphate or less phosphate. Now, what's the difference? The difference is it in our body to pull from. It doesn't make calcium. It doesn't make calcium. What it does is it once again, it's a receptor. It causes a blocker, so the calcium, it comes in and causes the part of the puzzle that connects to the calcium, the enzyme puzzle, as we might call it, causes it to be filled so that it no longer can absorb into the bloodstream. Now, what about the other calcium? It frees up calcium from bones and other areas and makes them better receptors to be used in the system. That's what the parathyroid does. It can increase the calcium. So, once again, parathyroid, okay, it's located on the thyroid. What hormone does it produce? The parathyroid hormone, PTH. And what does it do? It increases blood calcium and decreases phosphate concentration. Okay, so now we're going to go to the adrenal glands. Okay, well, we've heard a little bit about adrenaline, but let's see what adrenal glands are. The adrenal, A-D-R-E-N-A-L, adrenal glands, they're located on the top of the kidneys. They're located on the top of the kidneys. Now, it's kind of interesting because there's 3 hormones produced in the adrenal glands. All right, 3 hormones, once again, it's on top of the kidneys. First of all, we have aldosterone, A-L-D-O-S-T-E-R-O-N-E. A-L-D, aldosterone. A-L-D-O-S-T-E-R-O-N-E. All right, now what does aldosterone do? Well, it causes the kidneys to conserve sodium ions and water to excrete potassium ions. So basically, aldosterone, you could say, it controls the sodium and potassium concentrations in the body. All right. Well, sodium and potassium are critical in the body. And the sodium on the outside of the cell and the potassium on the inside of the cell causes our muscles to be able to contract. There's a bunch of reasons why sodium and potassium are switches inside the body. So the adrenal gland produces this aldosterone, A-L-D-O-S-T-E-R-O-N-E, and that regulates causes the kidneys to conserve sodium ions and water to excrete potassium ions. So it's telling the kidney, okay, all right, Mr. Kidney, you've got too much sodium, so what we need to do is we need more potassium. So it said, okay, if we need more potassium, then what do we need to do? If we need more potassium, we have to hold more water in our system. Wow. So when we have water retention, we're able to build up the sodium. When we excrete the sodium, then we build up more potassium. Wow. So once again, this perfect homeostasis. So we have the sodium-potassium pump, and when it's out of balance, then the adrenal gland comes to the rescue with the aldosterone hormone. The second hormone produced in the adrenal gland is cortisol. Now, cortisol is critical, okay? Cortisol is a hormone. It inhibits protein synthesis. It releases fatty acids and stimulates glucose formation from non-carbohydrates. So what does cortisol do? Okay, cortisol can stop protein. It says inhibits protein synthesis. Oh, So it can cause a cell to quit growing. If we have overgrowth in an area, we can stop the protein synthesis and it will quit growing. Wow, that's interesting. So what are we doing with a lot of cancer cells? We're doing some cortisol treatment where we can stop the protein synthesis and have cells quit growing. What else does cortisol do? It also can stimulate the formation of glucose, blood sugar. Also can make blood sugar, okay, from non-carbohydrates. Wow, okay. So in a nutshell, what does cortisol do? It stops protein synthesis and produces glucose. And then the third hormone produced by the adrenal gland is sex hormones. Now, we produce sex hormones from the gonads, okay, from the testes in males and from the eggs in females. But it's interesting that the adrenal gland picks this up. And at different ages in life, we begin to produce less of those sex hormones, and the adrenal gland actually takes over and produces the estrogen needed in females and the testosterone needed in males. Kind of interesting. Now, the last one is the pancreas. Now, the pancreas doesn't just release hormones. As a matter of fact, the pancreas secretes digestive juices that are used in digestion, okay, but it also makes hormones. And the hormone that it makes, okay, and I'm pretty sure you've heard of this one, okay, the hormone that the pancreas makes is insulin. And what does insulin do? Insulin allows us to, you know, we talk about diabetes. Somebody has a problem in the homeostasis where we have a certain amount of sugar in our body and we're only making a certain amount of glucose. Whether we're making too much glucose or not enough glucose, it's homeostasis. So when that homeostasis is broken, the pancreas produces insulin, which causes us to be able to be able to take the sugar and make more glucose. What does insulin do? It takes the sugar, puts it into a form that we can use in the form of glucose. So once again, that's a good overlook there. We had the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland, the adrenal gland, and the pancreas. So once again, a lot of different glands produced. We talked about negative feedback. Whenever we see that homeostasis is out of place, one of those glands is going to produce this hormone, and it will act one of two ways: water soluble or fat soluble. If it's fat soluble, then there goes that hormone out into the system, out into the blood system, finds the cell it's looking for, goes in, tells the messenger RNA to tell the DNA to do something different in that cell. Wow. To tell it to speed up, slow down, stop, produce something entirely different. Isn't that amazing? Or water soluble that goes and attaches to the plasma membrane, the outside of that cell, and regulates what goes in and out of that cell to either speed it up or slow it down. So as you can see, pretty good chapter, and you know, take your time going through all the questions. A lot more to this chapter than just what we talked about in the lecture, but a pretty good overview of homeostasis, hormones, and the glands that produce those hormones, and the mechanism that they work. And an important chapter for human anatomy and physiology. See you next video.